again. Welcome back. I'm excited about the next hour and also the following video. We're going to be learning the basics of video and sound editing with Adobe Premiere. And I'm, pretty excited about the idea of moving from Photoshop to animated GIFs and now to sort of full sort of video editing. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to start by kind of giving you a very brief rundown on video resolution. And I have that video resolution it's an external link to a sort of article on another site. I put down that it was a bonus. And anytime I use the word bonus in the class, that means that basically it's not required. It's kind of just additional information that I'm putting up there for you if you happen to be interested and you have time on your hands. There are a lot of areas where I feel like we don't have, necessarily enough time to cover some of the things that we're doing in depth. And so I do, whenever I can, want to try to provide you with that extra information that you can read, you can check it out, or you can just discard it. You can completely ignore it. The part that we're not anything that I talk about in one of these sort of like official videos that says, let's see, something like video on it, that could potentially be sort of fodder for the exam. So just to be clear, anything that says bonus is not technically kind of something that I'm expecting you to retain for the exam. It's just like additional information. Okay, so I wanted to make that really clear. I do want to take a minute to talk to you about this topic, though, video resolution. We're not going to be talking about it at any great length, which is why I provided you the link to the article. But I did want to very briefly kind of show you this this image, which I think I'm going to post separately as kind of not a bonus. And the article itself can kind of be the bonus fodder there. So basically, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some decisions that we were making with the video projects, and particularly with the remix project. We do have another project coming down the way next week, and that's going to be just a quick video project. And we'll have those details out to you very quickly, probably within the next couple of days. So within a sort of video framework, we have this concept of resolution or pixel size. It crops up again. So you may remember that when we were working in Photoshop, and even when you're working with your GIF, you're working with a specific pixel size. And that idea of the pixel size is going to recur, throughout the kind of video world. The nice thing about resolution in video is that once you set it as part of your sequence settings, which I'll be showing you how to do very, very soon, you kind of don't have to think about it too much. But we have basically and this is a very kind of simplified chart of what the operating resolutions are right now for video. We're in kind of a unique time technologically where you can see we have things like 8K coming onto the landscape. So that you can see is incredibly much larger than what would be considered SD, which SD is really sort of something that not many people use anymore, because most people's computers and playback devices are capable of more. So probably the resolution that you will wind up using the most as a video editor or video producer would be 1080 HD. Now, we are going to be using 720 HD, and that is for a couple of reasons. It's so that your video processing times are not too long. When you start getting into larger resolutions in video, it can cause you to hit the button maybe to save the video and then come back tomorrow and see if it's done. So I don't want anyone to have that kind of an experience. If you're working in 720, which you should be in your assignments for this class, you shouldn't have a video that processes for more than an hour. And really kind of 25-30 minutes is probably the upper limit. But if your video has been processing for more than an hour, I would email me or the TA for help. And we'll probably ask you to just stop processing it, and maybe we'll take a look at your settings and make sure that they're correct. So because as you add a pixel size burden with video, it becomes kind of like a exponentially multiplied, and that's because for every frame of video, or for every second of video, you probably have about 30 frames. So that's not just one image, it's one image times 30 plus whatever the file size burden of the audio is. So video can become very, very system intensive very quickly. And probably the best way to do that is by adding pixels to the size of the video. So we're going to be working in 720, mostly because I don't want anybody's computer kind of like pushed to some limit where they, have to wait forever before they get to do another thing. And I think if you have a really great computer, and you are confident that you can do 1080 or 4K for your own work, then you should totally do that. But it's not necessary for the class. Okay, so I'm gonna check out of this for just a second here. And so again, if you want to like kind of learn about the intricacies of video resolution, feel free to read that article. But the only thing that I'm gonna sort of like hold you accountable for the exam is knowing maybe what are, not that this is going to be an exam question or anything, what are some common HD resolutions? Oh, and what are not. Okay, so enough of that. So now I'm going to sort of think about getting my project started in Premiere. Okay, let's do it. So the first thing that I want to do probably when I'm getting a project going in Premiere is I probably want to, particularly with the kind of idea of remixing, I want to actually have some footage that I'm going to use. So I think I have provided you all with a set of footage that does not have sound. And so that is available right here where it says sample practice videos. And for some reason, all my Google links are not working. So I have a bunch of kind of samples. Some of them are, vintage, and some of them are very recent. I did manage to include the WAP video because I mostly couldn't really imagine having a set of, videos without including that because it's been such an important video this year. I've got some Game of Thrones scenes, some various movie scenes, like generic stuff of CNN, some stuff from GoPros, like at the International Space Station, and a good amount of Star Trek, vintage Star Trek. So that's kind of what we're working with. I think that the remix videos really work best when you use more than one of these sources, although you're sort of welcome to handle that however you like. So I'm going to go ahead and download a couple of these. I could probably just download the whole folder. They're not that big. But I think I'm going to take, let's see. I think I'm going to take this one. Download. I think I'm going to take my 2 Star Trek videos. What else? Maybe this video of Cersei Lannister blowing up the Sept of Baelor is another one of my personal favorites. I am going to be adding a few videos throughout the next week, so if you're thinking about, you know, getting started on your project, you may want to ask me or the TAs if we're adding any additional videos within the next couple days. I know your assignment's not due for a couple weeks, so we should have time, and we'll just kind of deal with that as it emerges. So, okay, so those videos should be kind of rolling around in my. Oh, look, the WAP video. Oh, maybe we'll have to do something with that too. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of grab these, and I'm going to stick them on my desktop. Probably one of the most reasonable things you can do to create a Premiere project is to go ahead and make yourself a folder. And the reason I say that is because we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos that we might potentially be using. And if those videos become really part of our project and we start editing them, the structure of a Premiere Pro project works a little bit like a website where everything has to kind of be in the right place. And so by starting off with a project folder, you're going to be in a good spot. So we've got some stuff here. I mean, we're going to add some sound, but I think I'm going to save that for next week. And so at this point, I really just want to work with the actual video itself. So I'm going to go ahead and start up Premiere. Here we go. Fun fact, I've been editing all of our class videos in Premiere as well. So I've been getting way more practice than I usually would. Okay, okay, so we are basically, creating a new project. And so there's a little bit of stuff that you have to do. So I'm going to just walk you through that. Okay, so you get this window, and there's a couple things that I want to draw your attention to. These are like classic blunders, okay? So I think I'm going to call this Remix Demo for the name of my project. Now, you may notice this is a really common problem that I get from students, and I also say common problem because I do it too sometimes. The default is to save it to Documents, Adobe Premiere Pro 12.0, because of course that's where you would look for it, right? So you want to probably change that location. And as I, pointed out to everybody just a second ago, I did spend some time making a video folder here with all my stuff in it. So it would be really cool if my project were also in that folder. So I'm going to just click choose. And so now I'm going to be able to actually find the Premiere Pro project if I need to. Pretty much all of this stuff is, I would try to probably match these settings. I don't I'm working on a MacBook Pro, like very sort of generic set of hardware. So it's really kind of like your garden variety MacBook Pro. And I don't really mess with any of these other options. And the reason for that is because my laptop, and probably your laptop too, if you have a laptop, only has one hard drive. So this whole setting on scratch disks, that's something that you can do if you have a PC or kind of a desktop tower that has more than one hard drive. You can set one hard drive to do certain stuff and another hard drive to do other stuff, and it can make it a lot faster. But pretty much anyone with a laptop, I don't think is going to have that option. So I think we can just safely kind of ignore this. But know that if you have it in your set of lifetime aspirations that you'd like to make 8K video, you can put yourself together like a screamer of a tower and set up a bunch of different scratch disks, and it does help a lot with video editing. Okay, so ingest settings. We don't actually need to deal with these either because it is disabled. But I've really never had a reason to deal with that, so I don't worry about it. Okay, so now we have the sort of settings, and just to recap, the only things that I've really changed here are the name and the location of my file. This stuff, it's probably a good idea to just check it and make sure, especially if you're planning on, using capture is basically like what you would get if you're using a video camera. So those might become important later. And then I click OK. Okay, and so now, let me think about what the best place for me, where the best place for me to be is. And I think that might be down here for now. It might move later. So I think basically what you have right now is you have the sort of like, let me actually pop my window up just a tiny bit. So I think I can squeeze in this menu up top here. What you have here is basically like the sort of generic basic layout of Premiere. And in most cases it works pretty well for me. I don't mess around with it too much. Sometimes I may rearrange things like a little bit, like I would rearrange things like this if I wanted to have a very large preview of my video and look at it in kind of a high quality mode. But you really don't need, if you're just editing, you don't really need a huge preview. And I actually find that when I'm working, that it's much more to my advantage to have the timeline, which is where all the kind of like guts of your video go, that's going to be what really, is important. And then over here, let's see. Probably the first thing that I would do to get this going, and we have to kind of like activate the interface. And so we can't really activate the interface or get anything up on the screen or anything like that until we import some projects. And so there's a couple of ways that we can go about doing that. Probably the most, kind of traditional way is to use file import. And let's see. Not that. Okay, so I could just select all of these videos at once and import them. It's going to take a little bit longer, maybe, but there they are. Okay, so you'll notice that they came up in a list view. That's the kind of configuration that I really like for using the project browser. I think you can also, make it. Sorry, I had to move my my screen recorder for just a second there. So you can also change it to like an icon view where you get a little bit of a preview. I mean, it's really all about your personal preference. It does not matter which is which. I tend to go for the list view because I tend to have lots and lots of imported items, and I just want to be able to get to them quickly. And it also, the list view gives me some other data, you know, about like the length of the clip. This little icon right here is also kind of important. That lets me know that the clip has sound attached to it. And in this case, I made those clips, so they have empty, like silent sound, but it's still sound nonetheless. And then the WAP clip does not have any sound at all. So let's go ahead and to kind of get things going, what we need to do is we need to take one or really any of these clips and drag it over to the timeline. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the blowing up the Sept of Baelor. And you can see that kind of like brought Premiere to life, basically. So a couple of things happened that are kind of tedious, but really important for you to know. One of the things that happened is obviously it kind of, you know, brought our timeline to life. And it revealed to us a couple of things there. It revealed that we have 3 video tracks, which is the default. And then underneath that, it looks like we have 3 audio tracks. So that is just fine. We can kind of, you know, work with that. If you need additional tracks, we'll talk about that at a future time. Okay, so other things that happened, we got a preview of our clip up here in the program browser. And we can sort of just play it through, I think. You gave me your word. Once the Queen Mother's trial is concluded. Okay, I'm 90% sure that the Sept of Baelor is not going to explode in the next like 5 seconds. So I can scrub using what's called the Playhead. And the Playhead is basically probably one of the most important things in Premiere. So, for example, if I wanted to go back and forth, I can do that. There's our explosion. You can also tell, by the way, that that's where the explosion is, because if you look at the audio waveform, it's like, gets a lot bigger here. So those are some other, you know, kind of things we can do with the Playhead. Before I kind of get into the, you know, minutia of kind of extracting the part of the video that I actually want, I think I'm going to point out one other thing to you that happened when we stuck the clip into the timeline. And that is that we got something else in the program browser. So this is a thing that a lot of people who work in Premiere don't even realize that they have it. You know, it's like, but then when it's gone, you know, it's vitally important. And that is this thing right here at the top that's got the green box next to it. That is what's known as the sequence. And the sequence is really kind of, in Premiere, I mean, I don't mean to overstate it, but the sequence is basically like the everything. The sequence is basically everything that's in the timeline. So you can see here it says Cersei Lannister blows up the Sept of Baelor. Here, Cersei Lannister blows up the Sept of Baelor. That's because we started with this clip called Cersei Lannister blows up the Sept of Baelor. Could we change the name of the sequence to be maybe a little bit more obvious? Sure, we could do that. Excuse me. Okay, that was a that was a classic fail. I basically just closed all my other kind of like layouts because I was like clicking, you know, carelessly. Oh. What I can do here is in my editing tab up here, you can say reset to saved layout, and that's going to get everything back for you basically. And so this is also kind of a little bit interesting, okay? So right now you can see that our timeline has no sequence. And that's a little strange because we totally just made one. So if I were you, I would probably be like, what do you mean no sequence? What the hell? And then, oh, excuse me, what the heck? And then I might come over here and say, well, this is a sequence. So what's up? Well, let's try double clicking this. And you can see that now we've actually opened up the sequence that we were on before. So this idea of the sequence is really just like a container, basically, for all of your projects. And we're not going to get this far with Premiere, but if you want to, in the future, you can have multiple sequences that are edited together. And so that's where they start to have like, oh, here's a TV show that has the opening credits, and that's a sequence, right? And then the weekly news, and that's a sequence. And then this special undercover story, and that's a sequence. And they're all kind of strung together. And so that's what sequences are really for. But I think in almost 90% of the projects that we're going to be working through, we are not going to need more than one sequence. So it does look like I accidentally deleted the video from the timeline, so that was kind of annoying. I'm going to put myself up here for just a second so that we can really get a good look at what's going on in the timeline. And before we get into kind of like really working with the timeline and actually basically editing video, we're going to do one more thing, and this is kind of like a final check for your project before you put a lot of time into editing it. And I say kind of a final check before because once you edit your stuff together in Premiere, there's not really a good way to rescale the resolution and make sure that it's right. So this is definitely one of those things that you would want to do before you do your project and not after. So what are we going to do? Well, we have our sequence down here. Sequence is in the timeline. Got stuff in the sequence. Everything's great. We're going to go up to the sequence menu, and we're going to check the very first thing. It says Sequence Settings. And actually, let me see if I can move my screen recorder. For some reason, I still can't get the very top menu, but I can get that. It says Sequence Settings under the Sequence menu. Okay, my computer crashed, so we're going to try that one more time. Now, in order to see the sequence settings in that menu, you are going to make sure that you're actually clicked on the sequence here in the project browser. So we're going to find that menu again, and here it is. And this is probably the most important thing you can do to kind of make sure that your project is not messed up. So one of the reasons that I encourage you to use the footage that I have provided you for the assignment is because all of the footage is guaranteed to be the correct size, and you won't have to do any like crazy jiggery pokery to kind of get things to work out. So if you started with something from the sample practice videos directory folder thing, you should be fine. And indeed, you can see, yep, this is 720p. So this is the exact size that your video should be. It's 1280 horizontal and 720 vertical. And that's really the major thing that you need to kind of check on. I might also do just an extra check to make sure your previews are 1280 by 720. That doesn't matter like for your grade, but it makes it a lot easier to use Premiere if you have full-size previews. And that's really it. That's all you need to do. I also do just want to point out to everyone that we're using a somewhat lower frame rate than what would be considered like a full HD frame rate. So we're using a frame rate of 23 frames a second. It could be 29.97 or 30, and it would probably be just fine. I'm guessing that the 23 is probably what the footage was brought in at. Solving differences in frame rate is not nearly as difficult, especially solving minor differences in frame rate is not nearly as difficult as solving differences in resolution and scale. So, you know, we learned back in Photoshop, I'm going to click OK here. We learned back in when we were working with Photoshop that, you know, when you make an image much larger that has a very specific pixel size, it usually loses a lot of quality. And so you'll find if you have things that are different resolutions, you could potentially find maybe you import a video here, and I'm just gonna simulate kind of like a bad situation here. So excuse me. So you may find yourself with another video like that, and you know, you're sort of trying to like you know, unify them, and if that video, you know, started off like really small like that, it's probably not going to have the pixels to scale itself up to match the higher quality video. And that's one of the reasons why you want to make sure that you kind of know what size your video is, and that you're not sort of having to like make some bigger and some smaller, because it just starts to look, I mean, really, it looks really bad. It actually looks worse in video than it does in a still image. So I'm going to just get rid of this real quickly, and let's get back to the task at hand here. We've spent quite a bit of time kind of like making sure everything's set up and everything's right, and that time is going to be, you know, there's some payoff there when you don't have to stress out about your project being all messed up. So as I said, I'm just going to kind of use this playhead, and I'm just going to kind of scrub through to the point where I think stuff is starting to happen. And what I could do is a couple of things. I could make a cut in this clip right here, and I used the cut tool right here. And this is what I would call in editing a rough cut, because I basically just slid the playhead to somewhere near where I wanted it to go, and then cut it. And we'll start doing fine cuts in a second. So now that I've cut this piece off, I can actually just go to my selection tool, which is also like Photoshop and Illustrator. The V key is the, you know, arrow or selection tool. And I can get rid of this stuff for now. Now, you may ask, oh my God, you just deleted it? No, totally not. Those clips are going to be here for forever. So I could take this whole clip that I just cut, and it's going to come through as the fully unedited version. So what you're doing on the timeline is you're really just creating like an edited version of whatever clip data you have in here. So the one other thing that I think I'm going to do to kind of like, you know, make this work out for me is I'm going to do, well, just a couple of quick things to the interface. I'm going to make my timeline a little bigger. Whoops, excuse me. As promised. And I didn't mean to make it like that. So I'm just going to grab it and see if I can get it back. Or Or I could just go back and do that reset view thing up here, which is a little bit easier. I have it's only when I'm teaching, I have very twitchy fingers. So, okay, so as I said, I'm going to get rid of this. And I do kind of want to adjust the amount of real estate here for my timeline, because I don't need like a preview that has a billion pixels. It's just not, it's not really going to help, you know, it's not going to make the editing any better. So what would make the editing go a little bit better is if I could see a little bit more in here. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually give some more space to the first track here. And I'm also going to give more space to the second track. And you can see that when you do that, something kind of cool just happened. And that is that I can get image previews for pretty much every frame in the video if I have enough space to display it. And, you know, I may also be asking myself at this moment right now, do I really need any audio tracks at all? Because I'm really not concerned with the audio right now. You may notice, by the way, that the audio is kind of glued to the clip. We can undo that, and we probably will when it comes to actually, you know, using and editing our audio. But I think right now I'm just going to ignore the audio, so I can slide down the audio tracks to kind of privilege whatever's going on in these two tracks. And I'm going to make these just a tiny bit bigger. So, I mean, you know, I think especially when you're working on a laptop and you have a really small screen, I think you have to be very kind of, you know, strategic about how you, you know, expand things while you're working on them. And then maybe you make them smaller later on. So I'm going to drag this clip, which is still not fully kind of edited, to the 0 mark. It's usually a good place to start your video at 0 seconds. So we'll just pretend that this is at the beginning of the timeline at this point. To answer your question that you're maybe not asking but might be in your head, can you work in the middle of the timeline? Sure, yeah, you absolutely can work way out in the middle of the timeline. The only sort of caveat to that is that at some point you're going to want to slide it back to the beginning so you don't have 15 or 20 minutes of silence before your video. Because when it exports, it generally speaking will export from 0. So it's just good practice, I think, to like respect the linearity of the timeline and that it starts at 0. So now I said I wanted to make some fine edits to this, and I've got a lot of real estate like vertically for the tracks, but it's gonna be, I mean, it's gonna be really hard for me to see and also control. Like if I wanna see like the perfect moment, you know, like where this happens, and I want to get just the right frame, I'm gonna have to be able to see it. And right now I can't see it, and I can't wiggle the playhead to it. So what I need to do is I need to zoom in on the timeline. So I'm going to make it so that this little block, which is about 15 seconds, fills up the entire timeline. And I might go even a little bit deeper than that. So I just used the multi-touch on my keyboard to zoom in. And you can see it's not, obviously not making it any, like, you know, it's not making it any larger, or it's not making it take up any more time. It's just affecting the kind of grain of the time code that it's displaying. So it really is like a zooming and looking at just finer grains of time. So we can either do that with the multi-touch, just by the sort of pinch, you know, action when you're on the timeline, or these little guys right here can do the same trick. And they can be maybe a little bit more precise. But I usually just go for the multi-touch because it's so easy. And so now we're looking a little more respectable here. I can scrub, and you can see now when I scrub, I can scrub pretty much frame by frame. Ooh, she mad. I think this is what I want. This whole like little right there. So let me see if there are any. Nope. Okay, so this is it right here. This is where I want to cut. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. And when I cut last time, I was cutting on the Playhead, and that's a pretty standard thing to do. So right now, you'll notice if I do actually kind of like touch the Playhead here, you see those little carrots kind of pop up. That means it's going to cut exactly where the Playhead is. And so for fine editing, that's definitely what you want. All right. And so once again, I'm going to grab the V or my arrow tool, and I'm just going to get rid of this. And I guess we could go ahead and move it back. That doesn't really matter right now, though. And I just want to make sure that there's... I think this is a really great place to end the explosion, because I actually what I want to do is I want to loop it. So I'm going to zoom in just a tiny bit more. And maybe make this just a teeny weeny bit bigger. And then this becomes sort of a really great place for me to cut right now. And go back to that selection tool. And okay, so basically I have gotten this sort of maybe 20-second moment here. Now you may be asking yourself, okay, well that's great, but why do you want just that one moment? It's a good question. We're going to add other stuff in there too. So probably what we'll close up with today is working on multiple tracks. And so first we're going to take this and we're going to cut and paste it, and we're going to kind of just use this one small clip to create something really interesting. And we're also going to kind of get through some of the basics of working with the timeline. So now what has happened here, let me redo that again because it's not as straightforward as it may have seemed. I basically said to myself, okay, I want this, and I want one more of them after that. And so the sort of common sense, straightforward thing to do there would be to cut and paste it, right? So let me cut and paste it without thinking. Oh, really? Did anybody notice there what happened? So the Playhead, another function that the Playhead has is that the Playhead functions as the point at which all pasting is going to happen. So if you want to paste this clip after the first clip, which is a pretty logical thing to want to do, I think, you do have to actually make that Playhead move to the end. And then you can cut and paste, because otherwise it's going to do that, and it's probably not going to be what you want. So, okay, so now we have basically two of these, and yep, they're butted up against each other. One thing that you might want to double check, and Premiere is pretty good about doing it, is that it's pretty good at snapping the tracks together, so there's not like a big like a flicker of black screen between them. Because if we were to look at these two clips, and this is also just kind of a good lesson to kind of think about what is in the timeline. Okay, we exploding. That is a black screen. Okay. So, so yeah, just know that if you have any gaps between your clips, or really like, you know, gaps for any reason, it's going to appear as a black screen. Okay, so I think what we would like to do, I'd like to do a couple of things with this second clip here. I'd like to create a sequence basically where this explosion, this is my fantasy, okay? I want this explosion to like breathe, you know? And it's going to be really like, not the most happy thing I've ever done in a demo, but you know, we'll get there. And actually, as I'm thinking about like this kind of action of it breathing, and I just watched that clip again, which is one of those things in video. I mean, it's probably one of these really obvious things, right? That you do need to watch it. Because when you watch it, you'll see like, oh, maybe I don't like that, or maybe that's not really what I want. So I think here, this bit is really nice, like just, yeah, and then even into here, but this sort of interruption of like people before the explosion comes, like I'm not sure if I really want that. So what is to be done? Well, I think probably what we could do is just make a shorter clip for now, and then we can kind of come back to this later. So when I work on video myself, like I kind of use the timeline. It's a little cheesy, but it works. I use the timeline as a canvas. And what that means is basically that, you know, I just kind of work on the timeline, and then if something doesn't work out on it, or, you know, you have something that you put down there and you started editing and then you decided you didn't like it, it's no different from any other creative software. You can just delete it. And so you can definitely, you know, use the timeline as kind of like your experimental canvas. So yeah, I think I am going to zoom in on that a bit and just get to that point where it's just, there we go, right? Like right here. Right there. So it's going to make it the clip a little bit shorter. So now it looks like if I go to my you know, selection tool, I can see that the clip, it looks like now it says it has a duration on it. It's 8 seconds now. So that's a little bit better probably for, you know, what I'm trying to do, which is a real quick kind of, and then it comes back, and then it comes back. So let's kind of take this out and just watch it one more time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was much more efficient as an explosion. And so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this and paste it. Go ahead and snap the playhead to the end of the other clip. Okay. Now that I'm here, I want to make it go backwards and forwards, right? That was kind of one of the things that I was talking about. So I think that what would be really cool is if we could right-click it or control-click if you're on a Mac, and you'll get this really long menu of stuff that you can do, and that's nice. But we want the speed and duration setting, I think. So in this case, I think maybe I'm gonna go make a kind of a drastic change. And I'm also gonna make it go backwards. And so we should start to get this kind of effect that we want here. And now it gets sucked back in. Backwards explosions are the best. Okay, so now we can copy and paste it and basically just do the same thing again. And we're going to kind of just keep it going fast and then slow. And so just to make things clear here, this would be 200% of the original. So if we made it 200% faster, it's not going to be any faster. It needs to actually be 400% faster. And then you can see in the duration dropped to 2 seconds instead of 4 seconds. So we started with 8 seconds, then we're at 4 seconds, and now we're at 2 seconds. And I'm going to go ahead and unclick the reverse. I think that's 90% sure that's the right thing to do. Yep. Yes, because I wanted it to go forward. And so in any case, we don't have to keep kind of doing these things individually. We could take this pair right here and just take the pair and basically make it go a little bit faster even. And so that's just a kind of little shortcut there. And so I shift selected them, so I've got them both selected. And now if I go to speed duration, it says, oh, what do you mean speed? So we could probably take that to, let's see if 200 works. Nope. So I'm going to have to actually set the speed individually, which kind of makes sense. So let me see here. So this would be 2. So that would be 400, 800. This is like almost parabolic progression. Here we go. And now I can right click this. So yeah, so this is gonna, whoops, sorry. This is gonna go off the rails pretty quickly, and I need to kind of, in order to click on a clip that is this small, I'm gonna have to zoom in a little bit, because you can see this red thing is called the ripple edit tool, and it actually is pretty awesome. It allows you to kind of like rethink your cuts after you've made them. So if you wanted to go back to the original clip and make it longer, you can do that. Don't want to do that in this case, so I want to just use my arrow tool and pop that down. And so now that was very crazy. That was a really quick progression in speed. We probably could have gone for like a little bit less than doubling. But you know, it does have that kind of like manic, you know, sort of like kind of thing going. And the sound probably, you know, helps that a little bit too. So I did want to kind of promise that we would talk about multiple tracks, and this is actually not a bad place for it, because it looks like we have, you know, just some stuff on the timeline at this point. We're kind of like maybe not really sure what we want to do with it, not really sure how it fits in. So let me go ahead and propose something, and that is that we basically kind of come up with something else to put on the timeline. And so I'm going to go for this because I can. And I'm going to just go ahead and search for like a section. There was a section where there was a snake coming out of her mouth, which I thought was kind of fun. Hello. Yeah, in here. That. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just make a cut here. And I'm going to get rid of the beginning. And I'm not going to go ahead and like cut every single thing kind of out of it. I think we could probably cut it here just with the end of the other, with the end of the explosions. And, you know, we're just kind of experimenting and having fun. So especially with something like a kind of remix prompt, you know, you definitely don't need a plan. So now notice what happens when I play this. So I have this video that I inserted on the second track here, and you'll probably notice that when I play it, it's just nonstop Cardi B, right? With explosions. Okay, so yeah, true. That is true. So I think basically we have to come up with some strategies of, you know, using both of these tracks. And so one of the easiest ways that you can blend between two tracks is, there are two ways. One is with the pen tool. And so if you use the pen tool, you may actually right click and make sure that show clip keyframes opacity is enabled, because that's what we're doing right now. The default is that it should be enabled, FYI, but if it's not, that's how you do it. So you can basically go into any track, like here, and you can basically make 2 points, and if you take this point and drag it down, check it out. That worked out oddly well. So yeah, you basically are creating kind of fade in and fade out points. And so we can certainly do that at all of these points. And that's going to allow this top, what's on the top, to basically, you know, become visible to what's on the bottom. And I think I'm going to have this fade all the way out to the end, just because it sounds fun. And here, I probably don't want this in here until it actually gets to that track. So let's watch this 50 minutes of insanity here. And then I'm going to show you one more technique for combining video across tracks. I almost feel like we could take this audio track and just make it longer so that it's having the sort of like every semester I'm like, oh my god, this is the weirdest video I've ever made. And I don't know. I might have topped it. So I think we have one more thing to show you. I did not forget. And so that would be that I think that maybe we could have another track on top of this, which is like getting really crazy here. Let's go ahead and do that though. Notice that I'm giving myself a little bit of vertical room for this next track. And I think I'm gonna try one like this space footage one. And I'm just gonna take my ripple edit tool actually, and I'm just gonna, or I can use the arrow tool, and the ripple tool automatically kind of comes up, and I'm just gonna truncate the clip to, you know, where the so-called end of my video seems to be. So now you can see that I still have my sort of, you know, clip keyframe thing that I could use the pen tool for, but I also have this other kind of avenue open to me, and that is that I can double click this clip. And when you double click a clip in Premiere, I'm gonna scooch over here, you basically can get what's called the clip preview, which is it's called the source browser, but it's basically a preview of the clip. And you can also double click over here on effect controls. And that's where you start to find kind of all of the like cool stuff that you can do that's gonna like really make it look different. And so check this out. In Premiere, you have a blending mode for every clip that is exactly the same as the blending modes in Photoshop. So to get a preview of what that might look like, I mean, let's start here. Okay, and as promised, we're gonna watch it one more time so you can kind of see what this extra track has contributed. We're definitely going to work on some sound tomorrow. Okay, well, everyone, I hope you have a fantastic time getting into Premiere. It's going to be super fun, and don't hesitate to reach out to me or the TAs if you have any questions. Okay, have a great one.